Very nice.
Very nice.
My wife.
My wife.
Can you hear our beautiful Borat voices, Kat?
Welcome in, everybody. This is our coffee talk and spoiler chat for The Last of Us parts 1, 2, and also including the HBO hit television show starring Pedro Pascal. I thought you were going to chime in with your own versions of Pedro Pascal. That's fine.
Oh, sorry. Daddy. Daddy?
Oh, that's actually what I meant to say. With me, I have the amazing Hutton_247 and Shaelish. And Hutton, do you want to start off by introducing yourself? Tell us a little about you and how you love The Last of Us.
My favorite question, talk about myself. I'm everywhere on Twitch, sometimes with a green sword, sometimes with not. I got into The Last of Us by watching someone play it because unfortunately I don't have a PlayStation, but I have watched quite possibly about 100 hours of this game over and over again just because I enjoy not only other people experience it, but I also enjoy like watching it myself and being like, oh, this bit's coming up. Yes, I love this bit. That's sort of my take on it.
Beautiful. And to my right, we have Shaelish. Introduce yourself. Tell us the things.
All right. Hey, everybody. I am Shael or Shaelish. I also am around Twitch, although not as often as I would like. And I have cried over The Last of Us. Yes, the limit of the times I've cried does not exist. The numbers, they don't go that high. I just think that Naughty Dog did such an amazing thing and really created a new way of storytelling through immersive gameplay through The Last of Us, and I am very passionate and interested in talking about it today.
Awesome. And y'all know me. I'm Joe. You can call me Goblin. And the reason I started playing The Last of Us is actually because Shael is one of my favorite people and was like, this is my favorite game. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have to do that. I don't do that for everybody. Even with some of my bestest friends in the world, I won't play their favorite games. Like, I don't know, cowboy games and stuff.
Wow.
It has to be like somewhat appealing
Wow.
to me. Don't worry, I will get there eventually. But
One day.
I like playing the games and stuff that my friends enjoy, especially if it has a strong emotional impact on the emotional experience throughout the game. Should we start off by talking about the show and part 1 adaptation? That way we hit a bit of part 1, also acknowledge the show before we get into the considerably much more controversial quote-unquote part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So starting off from the very beginning of The Last of Us, the most noticeable thing about part 1 especially that sets off the story, the narrative, and sets the game apart from a lot of other games out there right now, it's just the way that it depicts narrative. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about what makes The Last of Us so different narratively and why you think it works or doesn't work.
Go show.
All right.
Yeah, just hop in.
I mean, I think for me, what stands out in particular as somebody who is a longtime consumer of media and who is a longtime, obviously, like reader, nerd, I think that The Last of Us, what they really managed to do was create an entirely character-driven story. The entire plot and story is the relationship between the two characters, between Joel and between Ellie. And there is action and there are difficulties that they go through. Of course, the action only serves to further their relationship and further develop it. And it felt, the first time I played through this game, it felt like I was watching like an incredibly written TV show or an incredibly written movie or something, that it was just so rich and wonderful in subtext and rich in character and their development, and the way that the characters interacted, I found, was not something that I had ever experienced in a game before. And I think that's what Naughty Dog has learned incredibly well to do. And I think that's something that Neil Druckmann, of course, like The Last of Us is his baby. And that's something that he's developed and pushed for. And you can see it actually seep into other games that they have as well. You know, like the Naughty Dog, the boost mechanic. You can watch it develop through different games, but you can also watch their storytelling style develop if you play through all of the games.
And their other games are like Uncharted and Jack and Daxter. Jax.
Yeah.
You know, because those
Yeah,
they like make a appearance in the first game, right? In the toy store when Sam and Henry.
Yeah. And then there's like, if you go into like apartments and like look at games and stuff, there's like other Naughty Dog like PS3 games from 2013 and earlier.
There's like an arcade.
Really fun nod.
There's an arcade machine with, I think it's Jak and Daxter. When you go into the what is it? Left Behind DLC, I think it's called, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The DLC with Ellie and the other girl. I can't remember her name. My mind is still
Riley?
in work mode. Yeah,
It's right.
There's a reference to Jak and Daxter, which I think is pretty funny and cool.
Yeah, on terms of narrative, I think what you brought up with it being a very, very good and well-written narrative and like relationship-driven story really lends to it being such a successful adaptation of the show as well. And you famously don't like zombies, right?
That's correct. Fun fact, I hate zombies. If I see like even a little bit of like The Walking Dead where there's like zombies shambling around, I will have a nightmare. That's almost guaranteed. I don't know what it is about this freaking game and its narrative that just grabbed me so hard that I was willing to suffer many, many, many late nights of post-work gaming. Just like fear sweating. I'm like, this is worth it. This is worth it. This is worth it. This is worth it.
Yeah, it gets better, especially after the Olton. I don't know what the actual towers are called in Boston.
The two towers.
Yeah, the Ulston. Mm-hmm.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, the two towers. Once you get past that, everything is just kind of like downhill from there. But those first ones are really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense though. They established the threat of the clickers and the other turned, and it becomes less of a dominant threat once you're outside of the cityscapes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't even consider it a horror game at some points, because it becomes so focused on driving the story and the narrative that, like, oh, you don't even notice, oh, that's a bloater, oh, that's a clicker. You just go, boom, and that's it. Like,
I mean, the first time you have a bloater in the school in the first game is rough.
Yeah.
That first fight.
It's like, there are mini bosses in this game? No, I thought this was just supposed to hurt me emotionally, not mechanically.
It almost comes out of nowhere, like the boss fights in The Last of Us, especially in the second game with like the big thing there's like 10 zombies on one.
Oh, the Rat King.
The Rat King. Rat King and Rat Boy.
Like, that comes out of nowhere, and like you just have like all these devastating scenes, like you're just there crying as you're trying to fight it.
Wait, are you telling me you weren't anticipating a huge otherworldly, like, awful zomboy?
I was, but I was expecting that, like, one big thing. I wasn't expecting like one big thing plus 100 other little things, you know?
The Rat King was something that I knew nothing about, and I did not have any ammo, and I was the most stressed out and the most times I've died in a fight in The Last of Us ever.
How many times do you remember how many times you died?
No, I do not. It was a bad time.
Oh my gosh. Hutton, do you remember how many tries it took you?
I didn't play it. I don't have a PlayStation. I watched.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I watched. But however, in real life, a friend of mine, because I do have friends outside the internet.
What's that like?
Anyways, I went over to hers and we played it together, and it got to the point where she was giving me the controller to play it because she was like, "I'm gonna throw this if I don't take a break." because you panic, you're just like bang, 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 you waste all your ammo and all like your Molotovs and your bricks and all that. So then halfway through, you've got nothing and you're just running about panicking because you've got nothing left, you know?
When the game starts insulting you by giving you more ammo when you pick it up.
Do you know what's the most insulting thing? When it tells you to lower your difficulty. When it's like, if you're having trouble,
try lowering the difficulty.
Try lowering the difficulty.
It's over in options. If you didn't know how to do that, you fucking idiot.
And it tells you exactly how to do it. Go to settings, go to gameplay.
Speaking of narrative and the relationship-driven nature of the games, I'm curious, in the first game, especially, who were you most attached to, and how did your relationships form throughout the way the first game plays out?
In terms of like Joel and Ellie?
Joel, Ellie, Tess, you know, how did your first impressions start with those characters, and how did they grow? Like, were you instantly attached, or what characters resonated and did you care most about throughout the entirety of it? This can include side characters like Bill as well.
The first scene with Ellie, I was instantly like, you are so annoying. Why are you here? Like, that was an instant just like disconnect. And that may be because I don't like kids very much. But
you work with children.
Yeah, they're never here nor there, you know. They annoy me in real life too. Even more, because I've got to see them.
Fuck them kids.
But the minute she walked onto scene, I was like, wow, you are so annoying. And then it was like, oh, Joel, this is your package. Take this. I was like, for God's sake. Like, I thought she was going to be just the most annoying sidekick in all of gaming. I was like, I cannot wait for you to go. You were just annoying. And yes, she's a child and kids are annoying. But I felt especially annoyed because she was with you the whole time. But then, obviously, once the game progresses and you get to like see how important Ellie is, not only to like the world as a whole, but also to like very specific people, you start to think, maybe you're not as annoying as I once thought, you know? Maybe you're actually something better. And obviously, once you get to the second game, again, she's more grown up and it just just changes instantly.
You found her more annoying in the first game than the second game?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, I think that we love Ellie because Joel starts to love Ellie. I do think that she's a very know-it-all, bratty character, especially in the bottom in the beginning. And again, it comes down to the amazing character development that Naughty Dog was able to write, and Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson were able to portray so wonderfully.
I agree.
I feel like I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum on this. I feel like I found Joel very annoying.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning, and as soon as I met Ellie, I was like, all right, let's go. I mean, of course, like the opening of the game with Joel and Sarah, it's probably one of the most heart-wrenching things I've ever been through. And I was surprised by how much I cared so quickly about both of them. Just seeing like 20 years go by and him be in this space, I think kind of gave me the permission to like, okay, like I care about what happened, and like it was very emotional and taxing, but now it's been so long, I'm allowed to be annoyed with him. And I found him very aggravating for the first part, but like not in a way where I necessarily disliked him.
I think that Joel is very much a video game protagonist. He is a strong man, knows gun, survives apocalypse. It's nothing that, you know, we haven't seen in a video game before. Like, I mean, I understand both sides of it, of like both of what you guys are saying, but I mean, yeah, Ellie can be a character that is also frustrating, and I think I lean a little bit more towards what Hut's saying.
Oh yeah, no, both are super valid. I love the smart talking, smart mouth, smart ass person. I'm like, yes, me.
It's really interesting because I don't know why, but like whenever I met a character, I was like, Ellie, you're annoying. Tess, love you. Tommy, meh, you know, whatever. And then it was with Joel. I was like, I don't really have an opinion, because like Shell said, he's a typical video game protagonist. You know, man do this, man strong, man go pew pew, man never cries, you know, man sad. I was like, oh, okay, this is like everything I've seen before with a male protagonist. And it is really great to see that they don't just leave him as that. They don't just leave him as like this emotionless, closed off man who is just there to look cool and shoot zombies. You know, they actually give him some depth. Is how I put it. Some depth to him.
It sounded like death.
Death
Which is also true.
Well, that's later.
Spoilers.
Yeah, that was just like how they sort of flip the script on typical men in video games, really.
I also think it's a strategy with the protagonist, especially in a narrative-driven game that is so linear, to allow the gamer to self-insert if they are that kind of gamer. I know I definitely like to self-insert as a protagonist. It's what appeals about video games so much, is like I want to pretend to be this person. Their choices, their actions mean a lot to me. And especially when you're not playing a game where your choices matter, it allows for that bit of immersion, which I think is a tactic in leaving sometimes the lead protagonist a bit bland. And I don't know if that was intentional on their part, but I find it a bit curious.
I think it was intentional to a point, because if you think about it, this dude has just like, he's lost his daughter in a freaking brutal way. He's living in like a world that isn't a world anymore. It's just, he's not living, he's surviving, right? It's like, if that was me, I wouldn't be like jokes all the time.
People handle trauma in different ways. Trauma makes some of us really, really funny. Trauma makes others shut completely off from other people in the world. And, you know, it's not our place to judge.
Sure wouldn't have been the same game, though, if Joel had been traumatized in a funny way.
I mean, generally going through that game, it's like you both said, the relationships getting closer and closer, more intertwined, and it's hard to care about one without caring about the other, especially midway later in the game, because that's the whole point, is relationships. And that's what makes any good story, I think, really, really strong, is the strength between relationships. We talked about this the other day, where you could have like a really amazing concept for narrative, but if the relationships aren't there, it's just like a cool story idea and it doesn't really land, versus you could have like a lackluster story, and if the characters really care about each other and are fully fleshed out, it sells it a lot more. And especially if you watch the behind the scenes of the HBO show, they talk about it afterwards a little bit in depth, with going into the showrunner and Neil Druckmann talking about each episode, to the point where at the end, like, Neil Druckmann was basically like, this story is about how far you would go to protect those who you love. And Joel goes probably farther than I think most other characters in narrative. How do you feel, and where do you stand on the ending of the first game?
I think that it's very important to preface this discussion with a Joel is the protagonist, he is not the hero note, because I think that there is a lot of people who react to this discussion very emotionally strongly. Joel made a decision that even if, in the off chance, there could have been a antidote made and every single person in the world could have been saved, he weighed all of the everything against one person's life, and that makes him a bad person. That's not subjective. That's an objective fact. I mean, the ending is gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. And
what part, when you talk about gut-wrenching and heartbreaking, I'm interested. At
the very end, when Ellie asks, "Do you promise?" and it's such a beautifully acted, both in the show and the game. When Ellie is like, "Do you promise to me that you are telling the truth?" Because there is just the tiniest drop of doubt that is still there. Ellie at every single chance that she has, every turn, shows us that she is willing to put her life on the line to help people. She wants to be the cure. She wants to make a difference. She wants to be the reason that there's some sort of normalcy. We see in the Left Behind DLC, she loves the world as it was before. She is obsessed with the idea of it. She is enchanted with the possibility of it. You see that when we go to the mall. We see that in the incredible acting choices that Bella Ramsey made when we're there, and she sees it light up for the first time, and it's just like, oh, I got chills over my entire body when I was watching that. She has enough doubt in her heart that, obviously, and a little spoiler for the second game, but just that she goes back and she investigates. And I think that for me is the most heartbreaking part of the story, because Joel took away her choice. He took away her her agency. What she wanted did not matter to him, because he could not face losing her. He was a coward, and he knew the pain. And you can argue that, yeah, of course, he knows the pain of losing a daughter. He knows that. He knows exactly what that feels like, and he can't go through that again. It's made so clear to us that was what Ellie wanted.
I think that when you say it like that, that exemplifies why Joel taking away her choice is even more poignant than the Fireflies not giving her a choice, because he does know, and it is shown time and time again, and he still chooses to do that and chooses his own feelings over what she stated time and time again that she wanted. And realistically, should she have been given a choice by the Fireflies? I absolutely believe so. But Joel knew where she stood on things, and he knew what he was doing, and he responded to his trauma.
It all comes down to the "it can't all be for nothing" line. Like, everything that they've gone through, everything that we've done, it can't all be for nothing. That line, like, she never said it straight out to Joel, but it was very, very clear.
When I first saw it, I was like, yes, Joel was in the right, because yes, obviously we've been through so much of this whole game where everyone is dying left, right, and center. Of course I don't want someone else to die, especially someone who you spend like majority of the game talking to and listening to, like, her silly jokes and her thoughts and all that. But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait, but Ellie wants this and Joel has done this. There is just such a disconnect between the two characters now. And I feel like I really get annoyed when people are like, this person is right, this person is right, this person is right. Because you can't just say that this person is right, this person is right. Because there is so much to think about in the wider scheme of things. Like what Shell said with Ellie she wanted to do that. She wanted to give herself up for that. And Joel was just gone, no, because he just can't think of losing someone else. And it is selfish. Yeah, it is. But do you blame him? Like, can you blame him for, like, wanting to keep someone that close to him? Because there is just so much to think about with the whole ending. This is why it's so great, because you can talk about it for ages and get a new point from it, you know? And I think what is the most depressing part about it is Ellie puts her full trust in what Joel is saying. And for Joel to just be like, haha, no, and to just completely straight up lie to her. And she believes him 100%. It's just like, no, what are you doing?
I mean, I think that's part of what makes this game great is the nuance and the gray morality and the way that every single person is going to react and bond with a different character and in a different way. And you can also go back and replay it at different stages in your life and walk away thinking different things as well.
Yeah. It's like the first time I saw that scene, I was like, yes, Joel, you are right. And then the second time I was like, wait, hold on. And then the third time I was like,
It's also what is right and what is wrong, because, like, ethically it is 100% wrong to do that. But what's right and truthful to him and his experience, he did what was truthful and right in his eyes. And those are that's why things can't be right or wrong. There is nothing right or wrong about the universe in The Last of Us. And I think that's what drew me to it especially, and drew me in, is because, like, very much like my favorite game, The Witcher 3, things are very much in a gray realm of morality. And when I played through, of course, I wanted what was happening to happen as a player. I talk about I self-insert as the protagonist. I go on that emotional journey with them and being with him at every step of the way. Even though he wasn't my favorite at first, I finally grew attached to him. And I was like, yes, like, get your girl, like, go to... In the back of my mind, I knew, I was like, this is wrong. I know this is wrong. This is not a good choice to make. Especially, like, knowing narrative and realizing that this story is told from a very subjective perspective. The perspective of the protagonist, especially when you shoot Marlene, I'm like, no, just don't, not Marlene, because I'm sure a lot of people like who didn't want to think about it objectively could easily see Marlene as a very antagonistic, very bad guy figure. She's not, and I love the way the show expanded upon that and shows her relationship with Ellie's mom in such like a heartbreaking way. It really just drives home that perspective, especially in situations like this, is so influential.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like he couldn't leave her behind because she would not have stopped.
Oh yeah,
right? Like
100%.
Marlene would not give up that chance. He had to literally burn the bridges.
He had to do what he had to do to protect his girl, and emotionally was there with him. Objectively, no.
That ending scene where Joel, he does like just straight up lies, I think is like the final nail in the coffin of, yeah, Joel isn't this great person we all think he is. Like Shao put it wonderfully when they said that Joel is the protagonist, he's not the hero. And the first time I saw him say that, I was like, what? No, I knew for a fact it was going to come around and bite him at some point. And it was just the final nail of, yeah, like I'm playing as someone who is morally grey, who doesn't necessarily do the best things at the right time. Because up until that point, I had always played as like, yay, good superhero protagonists. So it was so interesting to me to see a different perspective of, wow, this dude isn't good. He's not a nice person, you know?
Yeah, and we're told that all the way through the game. It's just whether we stop and listen to it as well. It's like he's been on both sides of being a raider. He's been when he's with Tommy, and Tommy's like, all of the stuff that we did, like, you know, that's in the past. I'm not going back there. Like, there's things that clearly haunt Joel beyond just the fact that he lost Sarah. It is all of the things that he had to do to this point to be able to survive. The moral grayness of this freaking game is what makes it so good.
Yeah. It's done really well in the show when you first see Joel after the time skip, and the first time you see him again is putting an infected child's body into a pit. Like, that just shows how numb and anesthetized he's become. That doesn't mean that his trauma cannot be triggered, because it is, but it really shows that, like, for this person who the last time we saw them went through this traumatic experience with their child, to be able to do this with a blank face, there's been a lot of stuff there that we don't know about. And at the end of the day, this game is not a zombie game. It is a examination of humanity, how humanity would possibly respond to a zombie infection, and how that would lead to people turning against each other, and how people unite with each other, and all of that kind of stuff.
Full agreement. No.
Yeah. There's nothing to that. Just
any other things from the first game? Would you have done the same at the end? Because I personally don't think I would have. But like, I constantly look through things at an objective lens in life. I probably would have just had a very much more sad story.
I don't know whether I would have done the same or not, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my answer. I can't think of what. It was such a split decision that Joel did. There was no planning. He didn't, like, there was no planning, weighing out the pros and cons. He just done it. He didn't give Ellie a choice. He didn't take in her feelings into account. He just took his feelings into account when he done it. So I don't know whether I would have done. I don't know. I just can't think because I constantly go back and forth with yes, I would have, because this is the only person I have left who's close to me, and then I have the people pleaser that is like, but she wanted it this way, so I should do it that way.
Going to like giving Ellie a choice. This is one of the most impressive things I think that this game and this narrative does. In the situation that they were put in, there was no way to give her a choice.
Of course, yeah.
Because
the
Firefly seized the moment. Once they realized who they had, they like took her immediately into surgery. No talk, no nothing. And he didn't get an opportunity to talk with her and give her, just to double check that this is what she wanted, which I would debate that even if she had, that there's still a chance that he would have been triggered. But everything in this narrative happens exactly the way it does for a reason, because if any tiny little thing had changed at any point along the way, we would have had a different outcome.
Yeah.
Which just means it's very, very like well thought out and particular and not a wasted moment storytelling. And I love that.
It's such a wonderful masterclass in storytelling. I think that for years people are going to be pointing at the game and at the show as a absolute seismic shift when it came to gaming, and also on a larger scale storytelling as well.
Well, it's like, look, the game came out 10 years ago, and we're still here talking about the ending 10 years later. So it must have had some sort of impact for us to be still here debating whether or not Joel was right. Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, I don't think it's like a shoo-in whether, especially talking and like self-inserting into it. Like there's no way to like know 100% for sure, but I would say the only thing you can say 100% for sure is that not everybody would do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You may or may not, in the moment, given the circumstances, be able to consciously make that choice, like due to the degree of how you handle and work through trauma. People are different inherently at their core and would make different decisions. Whether you're honest with yourself about what you think you would make or not, that's up for debate. But not everyone would make the same exact decision, because if that's the case, anytime anyone was put in a life or death, very high stakes situation, we would all make the same decision. And that's not true, because some people value the self over others. Some people value others over the self more. People are different at the end of the day.
I would love to see, do you know how in Telltale games and Life is Strange games, I would love to see if the ending was multiple choice, so you could either save Ellie or like leave her there. I would love to see what people chose, just out of nosiness and curiosity.
Like the statistics, yeah.
Yeah, like 70% of the people took Ellie from the Fireflies, and then like 30% left. I would love to see just the statistics of what people chose, because I think that would be quite interesting as well.
I'm just imagining playing through The Last of Us now, and like you fucking shoot Marlene, and then just the biggest, this action will have consequences.
Or anything you do is Joel, this action will have consequences. Yeah. Or Ellie will remember this.
Yeah, she sure will. That was heartbreaking though. Because at the end of the game, I thought for sure that she knew something, or she picked up something, or woke up intermittently before being put into surgery, where she knew that Joel was lying. But just after playing through The Last of Us Part 2 and realizing that no, she knew him so well, and she could read the situation, his energy so well, that she just picked up on it. That was really heartbreaking.
Do both of you think that Ellie doubted immediately, or do you think that it was always in the back of her mind
that he might not let her do it?
Lied?
Oh, I think from the second she asked him, she knew. I think from the second she woke up in the car, she knew. Her body language, even just the way she turns over.
I think she wouldn't have asked Joel if she was 100% certain. I think she asked him, he lied, and she was like, cool, okay. Yeah, I think she had her suspicions, and then she asked him and was like, he lied, and she was like, okay. I don't know whether she believed him or not, or whether she was like, okay, he's lying. We'll never know.
I got the impression that she knew, and she was giving him one last opportunity to like tell her, because she never does let it go.
That's what I think it was as well. Like she was giving him the opportunity to be like, okay, tell me the truth, and he didn't, and she was like, okay.
I think
You know?
I don't think that she knew. I think that she wanted to believe him so bad, because we have 5 full years, right? That we only see clips of, or like little baby playthroughs in the second game, where they have a wonderful relationship, where it's so great. I think that there's always just like in the back of her head just a little bit of doubt, just a little bit. But I think that she wanted for it to be true.
I agree with that.
So she was willing to, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
I believe, like, my gut reaction is a mix of both of those points of she knows in the way he responds deep down, but chooses to believe and chooses to be ignorant. But I think if that moment wasn't so poignant, then it wouldn't have stayed in the back of her mind. I think there's something in that moment that she's like, nope, I'm going to choose to believe. I'm choosing to believe. I'm just going to take him at face value.
Yeah.
But I think she knows in that moment, which, you know, is all speculation on my part.
Yeah. That's the thing. We can't know whether or not she believed him 100%. So we just have to think, you know.
So going over into The Last of Us Part 2, do we ever see if Ellie is triggered to start looking into Joel and his legitimacy, or is it just kind of, you know, we go a couple years down the line and start to see that she's going back? And I don't know if there's like a specific thing that like triggers it or not.
I don't think that it's been a while since I played Part 2. I played it right when it came out, but I don't think that there's any particular moment that they give us.
No, I don't think there's a scene where she goes to someone and be like, I am going to do this. I think it's all just implied that she's going for some reason.
I wondered that, but I wasn't sure. It doesn't give you the most insight into their backstory or into the interim time, but gosh, you can tell from the moment you play as her in Jackson that she's not happy. Which you learn about like slowly the more you go through the story, which is I think is so interesting the way it's bookended. Well, not bookended specifically, but nearly bookended with the flashbacks. But yeah, arguably Part 2 is far more controversial.
You don't say.
Mm-hmm. And
this is where I'm gonna start waving my hands around a lot more when I talk, because I have some points. I have some opinions.
I've got a couple feelings about this game. And it also comes back to like Ellie is not the fucking hero in this game. She is unhinged. No. Abby is arguably a hero.
Yep. I think we all feel very similarly. It would be more interesting to have somebody who was like Team Ellie only all the time in this conversation, but I think we're all
we'll probably get into it a bit later, but the whole Abby is a villain, Ellie is the hero is just ridiculous, because there are no heroes and villains in this game, and that's what makes it so great. You know, Abby is not a villain, but she's not a hero either. Ellie is not a villain, and she's definitely not a hero.
Definitely not a hero.
Definitely not a hero.
And it doesn't mean that we don't love her still. It doesn't mean that we can't understand where she's coming from, but she's not a hero. She is not the good guy or gal or pal, you know? Starting from the beginning, I guess before we get to the first big reason why a lot of people stopped playing this game, how did you feel initially when you saw, you know, a whole host of new characters and got to play as Abby for a little bit? Did you guess who she was and what she wanted? And did you also hate Owen as much as I did from day one, or what? You know, which is a personal opinion. We're gonna talk pretty objectively, but like,
so I thought I knew that Abby would be in some way connected, because I've seen so much media, I've seen so much I've played so many video games. They would not give you a character to play as for such a long period of time that wouldn't matter. You know, you don't play Mass Effect just to play as a random Solarian on a planet. You know, there is a reason you are playing as Abby. There is a reason that you spend so much time with her perspective. So I was like, oh, okay. I wonder who she is, because I didn't know immediately why we were playing with her, because I don't really pay attention that much on first playthroughs.
And
So
you
I was
start
like,
playing as her right after the weed scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me there was that initial like, oh, this is strange. Like, I wonder how this connects, because like again, everyone who even just like consumes a little bit of media has media literacy. And all of us would just been like, okay, like willing to go along with it. The instant that she heard his name, there was a wait, like, you know, and then as soon as they all got, you know, in the room together, it was so cool, because like that entire energy in that room just shifted so quickly. And I was like, oh my god, this is so well written. I'm so freaked out. What does it mean?
Well, the name isn't said until they have them captured, right?
No, Joel introduces himself to Abby, I believe.
Yes.
Around the ski lodge.
But from that like first moment on the ledge, I don't think it's mentioned. Owen just says, oh, he's probably in this town. Everyone's going to want to turn around because they can't infiltrate it. So how did you feel about Owen? I don't know why I'm so hung up on this. This is my one personal opinion that I want your personal opinions on. How do you feel about Owen from meeting him? I need to know if I am just like inherently out of my mind.
I mean, I don't think he's that interesting as a character. I think he's just white man McBoring.
Yeah, he is. He's just, the only way I can describe it is he's just there. You know, he's an object in the room. That's how I can describe him.
I will say that before anyone like jumps to conclude, I did end up having a bit of respect for him later on when him and Abby were on the Ferris wheel. But I don't know. There was like, I think I sniffed out a like twinge of infidelity from the beginning when he talks about, oh, Mel is pregnant, and the way she reacts to that, I'm just like, I don't like any of this or where it's going. I hate you.
Again, because because there was that. I've seen enough dramas and TV things. When Abby's reaction, I was like, oh no, here we go. Here we go again. There is something here. This can't end well.
I will say from the beginning, I definitely thought it was most likely that she and they were all somehow remaining Fireflies or connected to the Fireflies somehow, because when you go before the weed smoking and sexy times, you find that radio correspondence with Eugene, who was corresponding with Fireflies. So I'm like, oh, they're probably Fireflies. They're probably here for Joel and Ellie. And I had a couple other theories too of like, maybe they're part of the cannibal people, like with David's shit, because there were a lot of women and children who got out of that. So I figured they might be them grown up, or something related to Joel's past that we weren't sure of. And what really shook me from believing the Fireflies one, though, is that they do let Ellie and Tommy go, which threw me for a loop and I did not understand. But speaking of that scene, do y'all want to talk about your experience with that? With going golfing with Daddy Joel?
This is probably going to sound like such a dismissive and smart ass answer, but I knew that Joel wouldn't survive. I could see it from a mile away. I was like, okay, here's how games work. Either Joel's going to die or Ellie's going to die. Them two people will not survive the second game together. I knew it because I'm so online. I play so many games. I watch so many TV shows and films. I could taste it that it was coming, you know? So when it happened, of course I was shocked. I didn't think it would be that early in the game. So I was like, I was shook with it. But then I was like, okay, yeah, I knew it was coming. I was not surprised. I'll say that.
Also, I'm curious about that for both of you. Did you watch trailers for the video game?
No.
No? Okay. Shael, did you?
I mean, I saw the spoiler. So there was a huge leak.
Oh.
So I knew that it was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but yeah, again, as soon as they got to the lodge and Abby went, this is Joel, and like there was that like everyone just sort of like stood up a little straighter, got a little bit more ready. I was like, my stomach just went like bottomed out.
Yeah.
Again, like you, Hutton, and like you, Joe, I was surprised that it happened so early. Especially because there was, in the promo materials, when they released a trailer, there was a scene that they shot that they later, they turned it into Joel, but it was actually Jesse in the game.
What scene was that?
You know when Jesse grabs Ellie and puts his hand over her mouth and like there's the trucks going by?
Yeah.
In the previews, they made that into Joel, I believe.
That's cruel.
And,
Oh, damn.
Dang.
yeah. So it was a big old, like, they just red herring to the hell out of that. Emotionally, I was rivers of snot, tears, like
Really?
shaking. Like I literally had to put my controller down and like pause it and just like cry because I was just like
Yeah.
a mess.
When me and my friend played the second game together as well because we were such big fans of the games. We had to go to the shops and take a walk just to like calm down,
recover
and like get back on track.
This game is so mean when you think about it. Like you
It
recover
is.
emotionally from the last one and they're like, oh, here's a little flashback as a treat for you. You thought you were done crying for the day. Psych.
I'm gonna be honest, I thought that Joel wasn't gonna make it through the first game, so I was surprised at that. Because I knew nothing about the game. I actually had heard someone mention Joel die, so I always attributed it to the first game, since I knew Ellie was the focus of the second one. I didn't expect it like that either. I was not a river of tears. I was so shocked. I think I just sat there in silence and played through, and my emotions didn't catch up with me until the funeral, until you show up at Joel's house and there's all the flowers and letters from everybody whose lives in Jackson that he affected and helped. And I think that's when I really was like, oh. Yeah. I don't know. I think when I get really emotionally or life or death situations, I definitely go into like a state of quiet, honed focus mode. Get through, get out, get through, get out, survive. And I don't emote until later. It was definitely difficult. And then I was like, oh shit, I really did care about him a lot. Personally, when I experienced that scene as well, I think it was so incredibly well acted by everybody in the scene, but especially Laura Bailey, to the point where even when she grabbed that 9-iron, I was like, this character has a really, really good reason for doing whatever the fuck she's about to do. And it's gonna hurt, and I'm not gonna enjoy it, but she has a reason, and you could tell by the conviction and all of the emotion conveyed in her voice in those very short lines.
Oh, she's so stinking talented. I can't believe it. It makes me throw up.
They all are. They all are. I mean, like, even to Ashley Johnson, especially towards the end of the game, when she says things that makes me not like her, and it's Ashley Johnson, like, but I'm like, I don't like you right now. I love you, but I don't like you right now. But yeah, how did you feel about Abby?
I'm trying to think of how to put this in a way where I'm not so okay. I'll say this: I think it does a fantastic job narratively of giving you the other perspective. So usually in games, you play as the hero protagonist, or you usually play as just one person. I think why the second game is so great is because you play as the villain, in quotation marks. You get to see the other perspective, and I think that is just so brilliant that you sort of see her motive as to why. Because before you just sort of you go, I hate Abby, she killed Joel, blah blah blah, she bad, Abby bad, Joel good,
which is a fine reaction to have initially.
Of course, yeah, initially. And then the game progresses and you get to see again that Joel isn't a good person, and Joel outside of what we see versus what the rest of the world sees is so different. Like, we get to see as players Joel being so sweet to Ellie, to everyone around him, being like the dad, and then other people already see Joel as like this mental maniac killer, and that is what Abby sees. And it is just so brilliant to see that, oh wow, this is what the rest of the world thinks. It takes you out of being blinded by the view of the protagonist, which is again just great. That's why I think it's just the narrative storytelling is just phenomenal.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like flipping over at the midway point. And again, like I was just like in shock. Like I didn't know what to do. I was like, why am I in the woods? Why is there a zebra? What's going on? But I mean, like in terms of narrative structure, Abby's story so closely follows the beats of Joel's story from the first game. And Ellie's story is the absolute inversion of that. It's such good story writing.
It's so good. We can't even,
It's so good.
It's so good. We can't even talk about it.
So if the point of the first game is, or the moral of the story of the first game is, hypothetically, how far would you go to save someone that you loved? What would you say the primary narrative purpose of this game is?
I would argue that while the first game is about going far to protect those, I would argue that the second game is about revenge and the cycle of revenge, because Joel does this, Abby does this, Abby does this, Ellie does this, Ellie does this, Abby does this. It just continues on and on. Those three characters, they chase each other around throughout, literally and metaphorically. They chase each other around throughout the whole game. Like Abby kills Joel and then Ellie comes after her. It's like a 𝕵𝖓𝖕𝖏. They're just constantly, doing that around each other.
Where's the edit with the 𝕵𝖓𝖏𝖏 music? Let's go. I absolutely agree with you, honey.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it is the cycle of revenge and trying to break the cycle of revenge. Abby's story could theoretically be Ellie's story, just you have to wait for the time and like the healing to happen. Probably also a reason to be better. JJ should have been Ellie's reason to be better and to let it go, but he wasn't enough.
I would also throw into the mix that it exemplifies how people can be prisoners to their own perspective, especially as a takeaway from the viewer. And there are people who, like, after some time and some reflection and like buying in and fully like allowing themselves to play Abby's story, who maybe realize that. And then there's some people who like choose to remain in a forced, like, in their personal perspective and their personal attachments of the game instead of listening to the facts and like listening to what is actually presented to them. And I think that's really interesting. For the most part in video games, I'm never going to judge someone for a video game, especially the choices they make. My best friend killed everybody in The Witcher 3 on her first playthrough. I'm not going to judge her for that. But there are a couple instances in video games that while I might not judge somebody for making a choice or for having a certain perspective, it certainly does like trigger a little like red flag, and I'm just like, okay, let's just let's be prepared to let's maybe put this boundary with this person.
I don't blame people for having such a visceral and unforgiving, I'll say, opinion on people, because at the end of the day, everyone's got opinion. Everyone thinks they're entitled so that people should listen to their opinion. I can't blame someone for being so aggressive in their opinion. I will remember what you are saying and I will bring that up at another point. But, it's just, if you can't be surprised when people challenge you. If I was to say, I think that Joel is a crap character, I can't be surprised when someone turns around and goes, well, actually, you can't just go through, especially with a game as morally grey as this one. You can't go through the game without someone having a clash in opinion. And that's why I think, again, it's a great game. It gets people so interested and so invested. Like every time I talk to someone about this game, I'll think, oh, well, I didn't think about that.
It's a game that asks you at every turn to examine your biases and to think about why you feel the way that you do. I mean, like, the entire story of the backdrop of the wolves and the scars is two people who have hated each other for so long that they are pushed to a point where they have no other choice but to destroy each other. And Ellie destroys everything that she loves in pursuit of revenge. The entire game, every single moment, every narrative choice reinforces this. It's like, Why do you hate this character? What about this is bad? Why do you feel this way?
There's just so much to talk about in this game. Continuing on with part 2, I guess talk about the ending and then talk about a couple of outside perspective controversies that I've read up on.
I thought that this game was going to end like 3 times. I was like, oh god, no, we're flipping. Oh god, no, we're back. Okay, well, there's a sheep farm. Maybe
going.
This is the happy ending.
No, keeps going.
Just keeps going, and it's great because it reinforces that cyclical nature of revenge. I don't think that they could have chosen to end that game in any other way.
No.
Yeah.
I think that Joel in the first game made that decision, and then we learn in the second game that she had just decided to forgive him, and she had just decided to recreate a relationship with him, and all of those beautiful moments. Oh my god, the moment in the museum in the space rocket, bumping her into the water, just like the way that they were and that they could have been. Ellie was mourning what they could have had. Not so much that she lost him. Obviously, she was mourning that she lost him, but she was also mourning what they could have had in the future again. I mean, Abby almost chooses to continue that cycle, and it's only for Lev's innocence and Lev's ability to call her back that she makes the cycle be broken, but Ellie refuses to have it, you know? Yeah, well, I don't think it could have ever ended any other way.
I think she does initially. Towards the end, you know, I think she is genuinely takes Abby down from the stake with intention of letting them both go until she literally experiences a moment of PTSD, not as severely as we see earlier in the barn in the game, but it's not until she touches her wound and has a flashback. I don't know how it triggers for her, or like what about Joel, maybe just like the life-threatening wound triggers her memory back to Joel and brings everything back rushing forth, and she's like, no, we need to duke it out right here and now. And it's literally, I think it's an interesting mirror of Joel and Ellie's triggered traumas that lead them to do what they do.
I think that it all ties back into what I already mentioned from the first game. That one line is that, like, everything that we've done, everything I've done, it can't all be for nothing. You know, I think that she literally sees the blood on her hand, and I think that is what goes through her mind. She's like, I cannot have lost him and done all of this horrible stuff for nothing.
That's
yeah.
good.
I think as well, if Eddie would have let Abby go without doing anything, without even like, whether that be like smacking her or like talking to her or just like glaring at her, if Ellie would have just let her leave with Lev, I think she would have driven herself mad, being like, could have, should have, would have. I think it's a combination of the PTSD outburst and the spur of the moment decision of, yeah, let me go fight her a little bit. So I feel like she needed to do it in a way, you know?
But I mean, like, in the process, Ellie indisputably loses every single good thing in her life. She loses that connection with Joel that she has through playing guitar, which, oh my God, can we talk about for a quick second about how beautiful the narrative that they set up with guitars being her bond with Joel and then pushing into the flashback. I just think it's so freaking amazing. She loses the bond that she has with Joel. She loses Dina. She loses JJ. She loses her home. She loses her future because she couldn't let it go. And I mean, like, that is her trauma, and that is stemming from the fact that she needs a purpose in her life, and revenge for Joel's death was her purpose. That was what she was pursuing. That was why she was so single-minded. But she loses everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, do you think she would have sought revenge if Tommy hadn't showed up on their doorstep?
Yeah. I think that he pushed her to do it. I think that he pushed her to do it way earlier. But I think that her PTSD, her trauma, her flashbacks
Would have driven her.
Would have driven her eventually.
Mm.
Yeah, because she is not like as a therapist down the lane, you know, in a
It's me.
post-apocalyptic world.
Hire me. I will be zombie apocalypse therapist. I'm not certified, but
You know,
I'm
she can't
basically
just-
could be.
she can't just skip down the road to like the next town over and go and see a therapist. She has no way of working through her trauma and her thoughts without going and actually following through with what she wants to do, which is revenge. She wants to get back at Abby for getting back at her. It's just a cycle. It just goes over and over and over again. And in the process, she just loses absolutely everything that she could want and need, you know? It's heartbreaking.
There's a thought I have about the way that they use vehicles and like stuff from the old world in the games. With Ellie, we get trains. Trains are on a track. They can go one way. There's a point where the sniper's nest in the very top of the train that's derailed, they're literally telling us that she's off the fucking rails. Like there's no going back for her, you know? She's already done so much. Whereas in the very beginning of Abby's, we get that train yard. Okay, we got more trains. Cool. The first day is the only time we see a train on her side. We get boats. Boats can like turn, do anything, whatever. I don't know. That's just me maybe reading too far into the choices that they made. She's only interested in the one thing, and she cannot turn away no matter how much Dina begs her.
Well, because if her life wasn't meant for a cure and Joel takes that away from her and then she loses Joel, her only reason for technically being alive, like if it wasn't for him, she would have died one way or another, for a purpose or for not. And that makes a lot of sense. That's a huge motivation. Since a very young age, like you have a purpose, you have something that sets you apart, makes you special from everyone else, to be brought back to the level of everybody else. I don't know how stomachable that is. Yeah. But ultimately that's where she remains at the end, alone, with no discernible purpose.
Yeah. Stuck with a tractor that doesn't move, is broken.
And no farm animals. And
how? Okay.
No sheeps.
How? Where? How?
Okay.
How? There obviously it wasn't made up because there is furniture shapes in the dust, okay? But because they obviously did not sweep that fucking house. But like how did they get the animals? Are you sure it wasn't a dream? How did they move the animals? Who came to help Dina? Who came to help Dina move? Do you know how hard it is in 2023 in this society and this accessibility to get friends to help you move? So difficult. You have to fucking bribe them, right? You're moving right now.
Assumedly, it's going to be Jesse's family, though. That's where I thought that Dina was going to go.
She probably guilt with Jesse's family to helping her. That's it. That's probably how she got the farm.
She write a letter? She write a letter, or did she just let the farm animals go and say fuck it all?
She probably just let them out, you know, like once she decided to leave with JJ, she probably just went, be free.
But she took the side table.
I think that the sheep probably got herded back to Jackson because they're on Jackson outskirts, right? And you're not going to waste a potential resource.
That's what I was thinking. Like they had to have taken the animals and the chimkins, the chicks.
But I mean, like, we don't know. Like, it was probably months that Ellie was traveling, right? She's on foot trying to hunt Abby.
But she can't, like, send a letter to him. Who's gonna a carrier pigeon?
What do you mean?
How is Dina gonna get, like, the only way I can see it happening is if Tommy shows back up as, like, you know what? I'm sorry for being a cunt. Sorry, I have beef with Tommy. This is a personal opinion and not a reflection of how the character actually is represented in the narrative. And then she's like, oh yeah, well, Ellie left, so thanks for that. Can you go back to Jackson and get people to help me move this shit back? Like how, logistically, I'm getting caught up in details that don't matter super much.
Okay, so here's the thing. Jackson probably isn't that far from where Dina and Ellie are saying. I don't think Dina is so naive as to move away to the complete middle of nowhere. Like she has a baby. What if the baby gets sick? Like Dina's smart. She probably wants like somewhere like distant, but like not so distant.
I would say they're like 2 hours outside of Jackson. Like still within a patrol zone, but
okay, you're right.
It's probably, in all seriousness, it's probably not that far.
I just
know?
needed someone to reel me back in from my goblin theories, because, like...
Okay, so what is your theory then? Aliens? The aliens did it.
No, my theory for a hot second before I'm like, okay, that's probably not it, was walking back into the farmhouse at the end and nothing was there. I was like, oh, Dina never made it out. Ellie was living in a delusion state.
Delulu hours.
Yeah, she was in heavy Delulu hours and
Delulu hours.
hallucinating. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I just think I've watched way too many art house movies where things aren't real in the end. So I was projecting that upon the story. I was like, oh, Dina and JJ were never real. And everyone was like, no, Joe. Because I didn't think that Tommy survived.
No, the spinning top, you can hear it in the credits. It's wobbling, okay?
I always thought straight away that they were real. I never really questioned that they may not be real. And now that I'm thinking about it, I hate the whole, it was all a dream. Oh, she all imagined it. I hate that in like films and media. But I feel like it would have been 100 times more heartbreaking if that was actually the case with this story in particular.
Yeah, I'm just craving
And I
more
feel like-
heartbreak.
Yeah. I was having
Oh, yeah, because this game just didn't give enough.
It didn't.
It was really light on the heartbreak.
Harder.
Feelings.
Any further remarks on parts 1, 2, the show, the context of the game when it came out, or?
I think that in 10 years' time, we will be looking back at part 2 in the same way that we look at part 1 as one of the best games of all time, as a very, very influential milestone in the way that stories are told. I don't know. I do like strongly believe that all bits of The Last of Us are some of the best storytelling that I personally have ever consumed through media. If you haven't played it, go out right now. What are you hanging around here for?
You may still have spoilers, but you will still cry. People cry on their 6th playthrough of this game. It's ridiculous.
And I'm gonna be Mick fucked up when season 2 of the show comes out. Oh god, I am so interested to see how they are going to do it. Because are we gonna do day 1, 2, 3, day 1, 2, 3, or will we be experiencing everything in tandem?
I'm leaning towards
I feel
tandem.
like, I don't know, I feel like because of the greed of corporations and HBO Max, they're going to try and long it out as much as possible. So I feel like Joel's death could possibly be the last thing that happens. Because obviously Pedro Pascal is one of their main, I'm thinking of this in a cynical, negative way, but he's one of the main reasons that people are watching. You know, so they're going to try and keep him around as much as possible.
Yeah, start out every single episode with like a flashback or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
but
there's
they're not-
a decent amount of flashbacks throughout the game.
I don't know, they could go so many ways with it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Vivman, any thoughts on the backlash to Laura because of the game? Yeah, the backlash was fucking bullshit. You should never give a death threat to a human being because she's playing a part.
Mhm.
Why would you threaten her child?
I have never understood the idea of going to someone's comment section and being like, blah, 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 blah. Because what does that do? That doesn't stop the fact that one of my favorite beloved characters is dead. I'm pretty understanding, but I cannot put myself in the shoes of going to someone and being like, you should never do this. You should go there.
It's a very strange way to say that you don't understand entertainment, storytelling, or narrative. It's a really weird flex to say that you lack emotional maturity and competence as a
Yeah.
human being. It's a really weird way to like flex and say that you don't have compassion as a human being. It's a really, really weird way to like put that on display for a lot of other people.
It's a weird
Go
way of
off.
saying you don't know what you're talking about and you shouldn't be talking this loud
It really
Yeah.
is.
in a public
Same for the
space.
people who like said that to 𝕮𝖒 for Game of Thrones and stuff. Like, really, your emotional and mental maturity is not as developed as it could be. Or
Yeah.
if it is, then you're willfully choosing to speak in ignorance, which is another interesting choice to display proudly in front
Yeah.
of the mass groups of people.
Weird flex, but okay.
You know, I won't go that hard in on like if you truly believe that Ellie should have killed 𝕮𝖒. You know, like I may have like some boundaries that I set with you as a person. Like I won't let you super close to me, but I won't go that hard in on you. But when you bring it into real life, when you bring it into like people who are just doing a job and living a life and doing a really good job at their job. That's unacceptable.
Something else that I remember seeing as well, the body actress for Abby, the woman who they
Face model?
A face model, she got hate. She
Probably,
had nothing to do with it, you know.
Oh, she probably got hate just because she's like assumedly buff like Abby is.
Yeah.
Because
she had
people...
Everyone was mad because Abby had bigger muscles than they do, okay?
Abby
just go to the gym about it.
Abby can bench like what, 185, 180? That's not unrealistic. You go look up at how much weight CrossFit athletes like on a professional level throw around as women. Like you will be sickened because you'll be sad that you can't bench that much.
Strong ladies. It's impressive.
How can you give hate to a face model? What?
People did it for Dina too, just because they're likely bigoted and anti-Semitic, or just have unrealistic beauty standards. Shael, last thing before I know you have to go. You said in the past privately that you think there's still more story to tell with this series. Speculations for a third game, possibly, or where they go from here. Because I that's always stuck with me. I'm like, once I finish the game, I want to ask her about what story she thinks.
I think that the clearest full circle answer is Ellie finds a kid and the kid redeems her from what she has become. I mean, it's the same story. It's the same story over and over and over again. And I think that in the end, the only possible answer is that Ellie sacrifices herself for somebody that she loves. Because that's how this story has always worked. That is how this world that we adore so much has always worked. And Ellie has always wanted to die as a hero. And I mean that in the like typical capital H hero, not in the hero versus protagonist debate. She wants to be a hero for someone. She wants her life to have meaning. And if that's just the only for a single person, I think that is the way that she wants to go. Awesome. And I think that, I don't know, I think that that's the story. I think that that's always been the story.
I think redemption would be really great for part 3. Well, thank you for your time.
Note.
Yeah, Shael, I know you have to go, so
I really wish I could hang out for longer and chat more because this has been so fun and it's feeding my soul in such a lovely way. Thank you so much for having me and have the most fun, and I will catch up all of the other conversations on the VOD.
Perfect. Stick around. We're going to talk more Last of Us in a couple minutes. It won't be long.